This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to the Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast. Since 2015, I am back here in the very fine studios of Pod Populi, Podcast for the People. I am back after a bit of a break at the one in Scottsdale, Arizona. Not to pick a favorite child, but it might be. I like this one. And it is the full Scots dazzle going on here. If you've not been to Scottsdale during the season, 'tis the season. All right, I teased that my guests were coming on this show about a month ago. And people about a week ago were like, what happened to the people you teased? Well, I'm going to get to them in a second. This is such a, I won't even say complicated, interesting subject matter that I wanted to get in, that I had to bring in some help to help me co-host this. She's been on this show a lot of times, but not a long time. I went back and looked up the last time you were on the show. It might have been 2 years ago, which is very, very sad.
2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Why did we wait that long?
I don't know. Who knows what you're doing? She is the host of Path to Passion podcast. She's also a singer, so she may break into song. Yeah, we did the Breaking Up is Hard to Do mailbag a couple years ago, and you came up with a song on the spot. Do you remember it?
No.
That's so sad. Yael Lanciano, everybody.
Thanks for having me back.
All right. So here is what so many, many times over the last couple of years, I have mentioned that I always found it strange that boyfriends and girlfriends break up all the time and get back together all the time. But it's very, very rare that a husband and wife get divorced and get back together. And my theory on this as an unmarried person who doesn't have the complications of life is that at its height, at its peak, didn't you have something that bound you together, whether it was children or memories or something, that it's like you catch a glimpse across the room at your shared daughter's high school graduation and you're like, let's give this another go? No, it rarely happens because people say once you get lawyers involved, it's over. I have somebody who's not only done this once or twice, but the two of them have an interesting story. I'm just going to dive right in. You're going to have to keep up, people. It is Carol and Dean, or Dean and Carol, depending on which side of the room you're looking at. Welcome to the Great Love Debate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I learned this about you. I believe everybody, the reason why the Great Love Debate is at 500 or so episodes is because I believe everybody has a story to tell, perspective on this, shared experiences, pain, romances, all this. This is the kind of thing that anybody can sit down at a table and talk about. Not quite so many people have your experience. So I asked you guys when I first met you, how long have you been married? And you gave me an answer that I was like, wait, what? You lived here, wait, what? What? How did you explain it? Either one of you can explain that to me, and then we're going to work backwards into this.
Okay. Actually, if we were married 50 years ago tomorrow, ironically.
Oh, wow.
And
Happy first anniversary?
Not quite, yeah.
and then after we were married and we had our son, Jason, we split up. And that was in 1978. And
So 46 years ago,
Yeah.
you got divorced. Or you split up.
Yes.
Okay.
And we were always cordial. We were of the mindset that it's our issue. It will never be our children's issues. And because of that, you have respect for each other as the parent, if nothing else. And he was always a good daddy. Then that is that foundation that you build on. So over the years, Dean would fly out when our son graduated from high school and then graduated from college and things like that. And I got divorced about 9 years ago, I guess. And I had called him and said, I need to change my name back, and I'd like to take Donahue. We have a son. We have a grandson. I always liked the name, and I didn't have to change my initials. And he said, after he looked at his phone, do I care? And he said, no, I don't care. So I did that. Well, that kind of we both were divorced at that point, and that kind of broke the ice again, if you will. And the following December, I called her son. I said, hey, I want to come out and visit you. Well, Dad's coming to visit. And I go, oh. So then I called him and I said, hey, how about we get together and just a day or two overlap and we can do something with our son together that we've never done as a family. And he goes, oh, okay. I mean, he bowled me over with the enthusiasm. Not. But we did. And it kind of broke that ice a little bit more. And then I can go on full speed ahead if you want.
One thing led to another.
Yeah.
He there's an objection here. What is that? Is a hand raised, Dean?
Maybe not an objection as much as a modification.
Qualifier.
So when she said, why don't we get together and do something as a family, I'm on the other phone. She's in Phoenix, I'm in Detroit, and I'm rolling my eyes thinking, okay,
That's pretty much how
that's
he answered.
fine.
Yeah.
Because when she first called me, out of the clear blue, she left a message on my phone, and it said, hi, Dean, this is Carol, your ex-wife.
First ex-wife.
First ex-wife.
Yada, yada, like that. So I called her back. I think it was the next day.
No, it was like an hour later. It was great.
Oh, is that right? Mm-hmm. So I called her back. I'm on the back porch of my son's house, and I said, hi, Carol. I just want to let you know that you don't have to tell me who you are. I know who you are.
We have a child together.
Yeah. What's going on? And she said, well, I don't know if you know this, but I've recently went through a divorce. I said, well, I'm sorry. She said, don't be sorry. It's okay. I said, okay. I said, what's going on? She said, well, I want to change my name from my married name, and I was thinking about going back to your last name. So I kind of took my phone at arm's length, and I'm thinking, your brain is firing in nanoseconds, right? Do I really care about this? Why should I care about this? All the grandkids will have the same name. They won't say, how come Grandma and Grandpa have different names? And they won't have to deal with that. I said, yeah, that's great, and thanks for asking. And in my mind, I'm immediately thinking, this is different, because 40 years ago, she wouldn't have asked. She just would have done it.
See? Growth.
But that
True.
clicked with me. Okay. So anyway, so then she said, let's get I said, okay. So it was an interesting trip. I drove down, she flew in, and the Mississippi River had flooded that day. And it took me a long time. I drove from Detroit to Sulphur Springs, went to a bridge. The bridge was washed out. My GPS took me back to the same bridge.
It's very romantic.
It was an adventure. Anyway, the following day I got there, and we're together in my son's house for a couple of days. And she's in a bedroom, and I'm on the couch. Okay? And I'm happy there. Okay? And she's flying out in a couple of days, and I'm flying out 2 days after she flies out, and I cannot wait for her to leave. Okay? Not that I dislike her. It's not that.
You
it's
want the
just
bed.
that I want to
that's
spend
true.
time with my son, just father and son.
Yep.
Okay? So anyway, so we had a cordial couple of days.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have a picture that we still look at, and she always says to me, look at the look on your face. It looks like you want to be anywhere else but there. I said, that's probably accurate. So that happened. We call that San Antonio 1. Okay? So she flew back. A couple days later, I drove back to Detroit. And then the following year, it was December, and we had been talking, every couple weeks, every month, and it got to the point where I would end the conversation, or we would end the conversation, and I'd look at my phone and I'd say, I've been talking with her for an hour and 17 minutes? Really? No. Okay. And then it got to the point where she would call and I'd look at my phone and it would say, Carol. And I would say, oh, Carol. Where for, decades I was saying, oh,
Carol
Jesus.
who?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm enjoying the conversations. And we do have a son in common, for crying out loud. So that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
So I call her up in December the following year, and we start talking about our son, Jason. And I said, by the way, I'm going to go and see him again in January. She says, really? So am I. And I'm thinking to myself, you talk too much. so she says, when are you going? I told her where I'm going. She says, I'm going the same time. She says, by the way, I found a condo in New Braunfels because she belongs to this travel thing where she gets these unbelievable deals. And you could stay there with me. I said, that's fine, but I'll just find my own hotel. She said, okay. So I called her up the next day because I'm immediately having what they call buyer's remorse. Right? And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And this was a bald-faced lie. I have a work conflict. I'm not going to be able to make it. And then she says, well, I'm flexible on the dates. I said,
and I knew he was lying. Swear this.
And I said, okay, well, before you switch the dates, we'll see about it. We hung up and I said, I'm cooked. Just put your big boy pants on and do this.
Yep.
All right. So I called her back the next day, told her another lie. I said, I resolved the work conflict. And I said, okay. And I said, but I still want to get my own place. Okay. So then we talked again, and she said, I said, tell me about this condo. And she said, Dean, I have my bedroom way over here. We're talking on the phone, so I'm visualizing this. With my own bathroom, and you are way over there. I said, okay, I get it. I get it. I just didn't want to send any mixed message, wrong message. She said, I'm not getting any, and you're not sending any. I said, fine. It's great, and thank you. Go ahead.
So after we met up there, I got a condo so we could have our son and his family stay, but they never did. That would just, they had with the baby, it just worked out for them to be there. And so I end up being his navigator in the car going to and from yada yada. So I was only going to stay because he only wanted to have me there a couple days so he could spend more time with Jason by himself, that routine again. And so I made my reservations to do that. Well, we got along really, really well. And I was going online at our son's house, and it's Southwest, and they said, well, if you don't, they're expecting an ice storm. And if you would like to change your flight, then we will do that at no extra charge. I said, because just before then, this thing whispered, boy, I wish you didn't have to go. Well, okay. And I said, well, I have the whole week off. So because Southwest opened that door, Carol barreled through it. And I said, so when are you leaving? Friday. So we both left San Antonio Friday morning. Well, it was a horrific ice storm the next day. I mean, everything was like closed down. And so we couldn't get out. And so we stayed there. And that's where we kind of...
Your bedroom was no longer way over there?
Oh, no. He still had some issues. And I asked them, I said, did you ever hate me? And well, the taking the thing out of the dike.
Right.
And so he talked. And I had to take responsibility for some of the things that I did for the demise of the marriage the first time. I had to do that.
And how encyclopedic was his memory of 35 years earlier?
He's got an incredible much better than mine. And so I had to, as I said, take responsibility for that. And I think that really hit him. And near the end of the day, and he goes, man, this is the best day ever. This has been very cathartic. And I thought that was a very interesting word to use. And I go, well, I'm glad. Now, typically, if anybody asks me, I always have an opinion. And I actually was able to keep my mouth shut long enough for him to, basically. And it was very good. And then, and I think I might have said a few things, but it was basically him that had a lot of angst that he carried for a lot of years that I really didn't even realize.
So, question.
Well,
I have
I'm
a
not
million.
sure. I'm afraid to ask it. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask
You're allowed
it.
to ask anything.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious what the things were that caused the demise of the marriage, and and how you grew and how you are different now.
Immaturity. Immaturity.
In what way?
She's very, very courageous to say that she had to take responsibilities for some things that happened in the marriage. And she did. She sat there and she listened to everything I said. Never said, but you did this and you did this. Never, ever did. But she could have. Mm-hmm. I didn't wear a halo. Mm-hmm. And we were both young, immature. I had no direction in life. I didn't know how to make a living. We were accumulating debt. And this is not the life. I was 20, she was 19 when we got married.
We know everything then, don't you know?
And I got married.
So you didn't come back with any whataboutisms? That's huge.
It is, especially for me. No.
And that's a good question. So I have two questions. I have a million questions, but the two that come to mind when you say this is, you must have seen each other during it's 35 years in between fairly often. You bonded over your son or whatever. Was it because either you were in other relationships and couldn't see clearly, or is because one or both of you got to a point where you had some clarity and been like, you know what, that might have been a good time in my life if not for this, this, and this?
I think the clarity, frankly, and you obviously can answer this, I'm not one to hold on to, what's the word? Grudges. That's not who I am. I don't think he is necessarily, but he has a longer memory than I do. There's things that I remember and things that he remembers that might be a little different, but who cares? I had to, 40 years goes by. Hopefully one does get more mature. And, I've had kids, I've had other husbands, and just life and things that were so important to you at 19 or 20, you could give a flying rat's rear end about it. Who cares? and that's what I noticed the thing. So when we started talking, we started being, I even said, I don't know what we would call us, resurrected friends. And he goes, well, that works. Because we didn't think we were going to have a romantic thing. So we were able to be really very clear, and the communication was wide open. Huh. So if I had what he would think, that's a difficult question, I would just ask it, and he would answer, and vice versa.
All right. I have a million questions. We're gonna, and Yael's got questions, but our sponsors give a rat's rear end about things. I got to take a quick break. We're here with Carol. We're here with Dean. We're going to get into not only their other marriages, but a whole lot of other questions we have. We will be back right after this. And we are back. Yael had a question?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm just not understanding this correctly, but it seems like you didn't talk very often, but you have a son together, so I'm confused. Who raised him? Okay.
When Jason was 5, my father lived in Phoenix, and I lived in the Detroit area, and I was done with snow. And I said, I'd like to go and visit and, be near my dad. Well, I'm glad I did, because I got a year with him, and he died. So I was very glad to have that year. And then it was also a year that Jason got to know his grandfather. So I'm here, fat, dumb, and happy, going on through life, and I marry husband number 2, which I shouldn't have, but I had a child by him. That's done. Then I marry husband number 3, and that's done. And and so that's when I reached out to him. So yes, we would, maybe a couple of years would go by, I would never talk to him, only when it had anything to do with Jason. And as I said, since we put that, and it's nothing that we actually talked about. It's that because of who we are, I guess, and that we respect each other as a parent, if nothing else, then that, if there was a problem, I would be on the phone and I would call him. But there was really not many problems, and vice versa.
As we record this, we're not too far after Mother's Day, and I asked a lot of women and men, like, did you hear Happy Mother's Day from your ex-husband, or did you say Happy Mother's Day to your ex-wife? And I can't believe the amount of no. And I'm like, I don't understand that. I don't understand that either. But you, isn't there another part of this though? Didn't your there's been 3 husbands? Didn't your last husband not want you to have his name anymore?
Correct.
So he said, I got divorced. You need to give me my name back. What was that?
Yeah. Yeah. He,
In
near
a
the end,
nutshell.
In a nutshell, like that, I would have been like, and I know men are like that. Like, you can't use my name anymore or whatever. Like, I would be like, yeah.
well, the only reason I wanted to keep it is that I had worked, I guess it doesn't matter where I worked. I worked for the city of Phoenix, and a lot of people know who I am.
By that name.
Yes. And a friend of mine who's a cop said, Carol, you can't change your name. Everybody knows who you are.
Right.
Well, they know who you are. So, and I said, that's not going to be an issue. It really isn't, because I'm not shy and retiring stuck on the back corner.
Right.
And so after that, when he said, I would not like you to have my name, and I'm like, I was a little irritated, because when we first...
How long were you married?
22 years.
And how come I will raise your rat's ass and give it a fuck you? How come that's not, 22 years?
Yeah.
I don't even think he can have that conversation with you.
Well, you didn't know who I was married to. So.
I know. Yeah, I agree. I'm not judging.
Well, you know what? I will have to tell you, though. It was a God thing. It really was a God thing.
Yeah.
God put these things in order for me to call him, and we were divorced at the same time, because he'll say, I don't know how we're together. And I say, it's a God thing.
Floods and storms and Southwest Airlines.
You got
and
that.
Tough ex-husbands. Now, this is not, I believe, your first rodeo with reconciling with an ex-wife. Is this accurate?
That's correct.
So walk me through your 35 years in between.
Okay. Here we go.
Hang on.
So when Carol and I split up, all I could think about was my high school sweetheart. And I chased her down. And she was reluctant, to say the least. You do things in high school, they build trust, but most of the things you do in high school tear it down.
Yeah.
Okay? And I did my fair share of that, and she didn't trust me at all. I couldn't blame her. And I had no future. I'm driving a truck for a living, making $4.50 an hour. Her parents would expect something better of a boyfriend for their daughter than that, and I can understand that. And I wanted to do something better. But I chased her down, and long story, very short, we got married and had 2 sons together. Now, Jason had moved out to Phoenix with his mom, Caroln, and he would fly to Detroit and spend a couple weeks with us in the summertime, sometimes 3 weeks. One time was 6 weeks.
It was a long time.
Yeah, and it was great. And
Yes, it was.
There was a lot of interaction. Couple that with the woman that I married, wonderful lady named Penny. Her brother lived in Phoenix, and we would come out and visit him and his family. Wonderful, salt of the earth family, just tremendous people. And so I had cause to come out to Phoenix to see them. And while I'm here, I got to see Jason. Her brother would and his wife would graciously invite Jason over to their house and swim in the pool. And it was just a nice dynamic. Then her husband.
Which one?
Wait, so husband number 2 and you're on wife number 2. Is this right?
Yes, but,
Okay, so the score is 2-2.
Her husband that she got divorced from in 2016?
Yeah, 2015.
Okay, 2015.
Yeah.
Was always very nice to me. We hit it off. We got along. He would invite me over to their home to have dinner.
To compare notes
Because he shared
about
your
Carol.
pain.
It wasn't. They were very happy together at the time, and it wasn't awkward, and I felt very welcome.
Okay.
Okay. So, but there was never anything thing other than you're the mother of my son. That was it. There wasn't anything lurking in the back. Now,
Same.
Correct.
No?
correct. So I married Penny, and we were married for 7 years. We had a son, and when he was 2 years old, we got divorced. And so I moved out, and I remember that first night in my apartment, I slept on the floor, had a pillow and a lamp and a book and a blanket, and I was content. But it's an illusion. Really, sometimes what you want is a break from stuff, okay? Where's she going to get her break? I don't know. But anyway, so we separated, and then 2 weeks later, I found out that she's going on a date with a guy. Okay, this is not something that she started during our marriage.
Right.
This is just happenstance. Okay, we're going to have a trial separation, and then she calls me up and she says, "This is a bunch of crap. I've contacted an attorney. I want you to meet me at his office Tuesday morning at 9:00. Let's get this on the road." I said, okay. So we got divorced. All right. Fast forward 9 months, and I went on a date, and the date went very well.
No dates until that one? Or is this?
There were dates,
Oh,
but they were
they
here and
just
there.
didn't go well. Okay.
This date went very well.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm driving home from the state. It's about 12:30, after midnight, 12:30 in the morning. And I'm driving on the freeway, and I'm starting to get this like panic attack. All right. And I'm thinking to myself, you better take this to its logical conclusion. And I looked in the mirror, in the rearview mirror. I said, what are you doing? Take it to its logical conclusion. What's going to happen here? If you allow yourself, you're going to fall in love with this girl. You're going to start a third family. You have a son in Phoenix. You have a son here where you live in Detroit. You're going to start a third family? Really? Is that what you're going to do? And I said, and I come from a broken home. And I knew at this moment, I can't do this. I cannot do this. So a couple of days later, I called that girl up and I told her, and I'm sure she thought that I was so full of crap, okay, but I wasn't. That night.
What did you say? I don't want a family with you? She's probably like, I just wanted to go play golf.
I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry, but I have to go back to my wife, to my ex-wife, because I was divorced.
What made you think that was even a possibility?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Because I knew that we still loved each other deep down. And she had been diagnosed with MS and remissive recurring. So when she's in remission, you don't know there's anything wrong with her, but when it recurs, it's bad. Okay. But she wasn't symptomatic at the time. And after she had our first son, when she was pregnant, all the symptoms went away. And then they came back after she delivered, shortly thereafter, a month or two. But they weren't, real severe. And we never knew that it was going to get like super bad. Okay. So anyway, I said, I can't do this. So I drove home that same night, having this panic attack. I went to our home. I still had the key. I saw that her boyfriend's car was not parked out in front of the house. I was very relieved to see that. I got out of my car. At 1:00 in the morning, I walked into the house.
Wow.
I went into the bedroom. I sat down on the bed. She looks up at me like I'm from Neptune. What are you doing here? And I said, Penny, I don't care what it takes or who you want me to be, but you and I have got to make this work. We have to make this work. And she said, okay.
Wow.
Wow.
I have chills.
And a couple months later, we were remarried. We called up the rabbi, and it was May, and when we were dancing the hora at the wedding, and I think we got a new ketubah for that wedding. So, and then we were married for another 10 years.
Wow.
So when people would ask us how long we were married, we wouldn't say we were married for 7, divorced for a year, and then we got married for another.
Right.
We would always just say 18 years,
Right.
and discount the year in between. So married for 7, divorced for a year, married for another 9, for a total of 18 years. The second divorce took place. There are details that I don't want to get into publicly because
Understood.
she didn't do anything wrong, and there was a conflict in the house. There was a family dynamic,
Okay.
and with a person that we love very much, who was very generous to us, but it just didn't work out.
Okay.
Okay. And so we got divorced. And then her MS got really bad. But I started dating another girl. Okay. A year after our divorce was final, I started dating another woman, and I married her 4 years later. 5 years after this divorce was final. Okay. But I had broken up with her a dozen times because I just couldn't pull the trigger. I just couldn't for so many reasons. And I did something, she never brought this up to me, but I can't believe it didn't have a really bad impact on her view of me. And she wanted to get married in the Lutheran church. And we had an appointment, a pre-marriage appointment in the pastor's study. And we got there, and we're talking for less than 5 minutes, and I just looked at him and I said, I can't do this.
Oh.
He said, you can't do what? I said, I can't go through this marriage. He said, you need to leave now.
Oh.
And I did.
Oh my goodness.
And
still married her.
yeah. And then I realized, you know what are you looking for? This is everything, yada, yada. And I chased her back down and convinced her, and we finally got married. And I think that had we were married for 12 years. So we dated for 4, married for 12, got divorced. But it was...
All right. So
it
a
was
couple
tough.
things. I want to back up, and you like that part too, because that's what I think about when I prefaced all this. Why aren't there more men, women, couples who go up those stairs at 1:00 in the morning and say, and good, that guy's car could have been in the shop. You know, his car wasn't in the driveway. He took some chance. Like, he didn't think about that. And just say, like, what we had at its peak was this, and we have to figure out how to make it work. That almost never happens.
I can answer that.
Okay, good.
Arrogance and pride, probably on both people's sides. Where I worked, I heard a lot of stuff. And what I understand is that a lot of times parents, and I think very foolishly, will, your dad's a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
And on and on and on. So how can you respect that person, even as the mother or father of that child, when that's all they're doing is bad-mouthing the other person? And there's such bitterness that they refuse to forgive that person, if you will, and to move on. But since we didn't have all that child, I hate you type of bitterness there, and that kind of leaves that open. That's what I think. And I have seen a gazillion people come through my desk that have gone through some really ugly divorces, and it's typically, I think that's what it is.
You're right, but I'm still think, I don't know, 10%, 5%. It's really, really rare that you had. So to his credit, Carol, it's nice to have a man that is capable of feeling that, because he was probably not that man at 20.
No.
That you have that in you, and that takes some guts, and you had to put yourself out there. And I like what you said about sleeping on the floor, that sometimes we just need a break, and we all go through that. And so all of these kind of things is, you go through different things in life, and you hopefully grow. And a lot of times we grow apart. And I'm not saying necessarily you grow together, but there are things that two people can grow that could lead them back together, because now you're at a place where you're mature, you own your faults, you have some vulnerability, you share some honesty, and all of these things we probably don't have either in our youth or in the storm of raising children. Because when you go from husband, wife to mom and dad, it is a wildly different dynamic, and you don't necessarily see the person that way, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Go ahead, Dean.
Well, so when Carol called me about the name issue, okay, at that point in my life, I had been on 3 different dating sites, okay, online sites.
Yeah.
So when
We're familiar. Yeah.
So when you go on, they want you to give a profile. They want to know who you are. And so otherwise you can't see what's out there.
Right.
Okay. So I gave a profile, and my profile was always the same, that I'm still grieving. I'm not ready for a relationship. And that was honest. Okay. And I would never put my picture up, because in my mind, I thought, if I'm a woman and some guy doesn't want to put his picture up, I don't want to be what they call it, catfishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
you pretend to be somebody you're not. Okay. So they won't call me. And I was right. I didn't get one call
Right.
on that profile. Well, let's see. I think I'll
Yeah.
call this guy who doesn't have
Yeah.
a picture, and he
Yeah.
said
Who
he's
says
not
he's
ready.
grieving and doesn't
want to
See if I
be in
can
a
make
relationship.
that one more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catfish, Dino.
So you were sabotaging your own online dating experience?
Much.
So I would go through the list. I never called anybody. I never contacted anybody. Nobody ever contacted me. I would go and I'd look at these pictures. Oh, that one. Oh, that one. And then I would think, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to go on a date. It's going to go okay. And then, what if it goes great? And then they got to meet the kids. And they got to meet her kids. And then the holidays are a nightmare. You know what? This is a chore. And it just got to the point where I never contacted anybody. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was getting my life back together. I had gone through some financial difficulties. I got sick with late onset celiac disease, and some complications from IBS as well. And I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I was sick and I was in pain, and I'm curled up on the couch 2 or 3 days a week.
Right.
Trying to work, trying to make a living. And I'd worked for myself my whole life, and now I have to go work for someone else. That's difficult to do. But at this point in time, when she had called me, I was getting my life back together. And I had a great job.
So you had your confidence back.
Yeah, with a great company. I had the celiac and the other stuff under control. I knew the trial and error period was over with that. And I was getting my life back together. I was happy and content and had no desire to do anything. Okay. And then she called, and we're down in San Antonio, 1. That's over with. Now we're doing San Antonio 2, where she said, do you hate me? And then we just talked and talked and talked. And nothing physical ever happened on that trip except the hug at the airport. That was it. And
Some hug.
but during but during that time that we were iced in that little condo,
Yeah.
I'm making breakfast, I'm making dinner because I like to cook. And I looked over at her, she's reading something, and I thought, you're enjoying her company. What's up with that?
Now, Carol, you must have immediately or after some time seen some change, some growth, some confidence, or where you're like, I don't really remember that much the way he was. He probably remembers the way he was more than you do, and time and other bad husbands have sort of softened the view. And so did you look at him as a new version of him, or just a new man altogether who you were not familiar with?
A new version of him. I mean, when we dated in high school, I was 16, he was my first boyfriend. And then we got married. So it's a new version of him. Now, there are certain things that now that he does, and I go, I never saw that the first time, this predilection with paper towels, for instance, but that's another conversation.
It's another podcast. Yeah.
But see, he was always an ethical man, and I didn't realize, and this is one of the things where maturity brings, I didn't realize how sensitive of a man he was. Now, you don't usually, oh, yeah, I'm going to be sensitive today, and I never was before. That doesn't, it's usually there. But, when you're like a teenager, you're gonna have that, you got that whatever, that wall there. And anyway, so now all these years later, I realize this is a very sensitive man. And I know that I can just bowl you right over. So I have to, okay, dial it down, Carol. I think you told me that on the way here. So, so it was a continuation of what he was, but we both kind of grew into each other. And, like when you're 20 years old, are you thinking, who do you want to vote for? You don't think about that. But here, today you might. What's important to you? Things like that.
I think I'm a romantic guy, but when I'm out to dinner, I'm not thinking about marriage. I'm thinking about dessert. But you have this sort of burning, you do want to be married. No matter how many times you said, no, I was alone, I need a break, whatever. There's a part of you that at its best, you like the bond with him. Now, I think, though, that there's a chance, not to play amateur psychologist here, there's a chance that as your son grew up, that you recognize things in your adult son that might have reminded, that either the father might have reminded you or vice versa. Is that possible?
Oh, no doubt. And what's interesting is that our son was here last week. And I go, the longer that I see you here as an adult male, boy, do you remind me of your dad, or vice versa.
Right, and because you're going to naturally, hopefully, love your son.
Oh, absolutely.
That you're going to see the positives when the negatives might have faded away. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's very fair.
All right. And what did you change more? You've seemed a little more erratic over the years. But how did Carol change to you? Or you just think you were ready to appreciate what you had?
Okay, so I'm kind of a firm believer that who you are 30 years old is who you're going to be the rest of your life. Now, as I get older, I realize that's kind of unfair, okay, because I've changed, she's changed, but I never thought that she would change. So in talking to her and realizing you can't like someone unless you respect them.
Yep.
And I respected her. I respect her greatly. And then you can't love someone unless you like them. So it's respect, like, and love. And so I would rather be alone. You mentioned that maybe I just want to be married, but the deal is that I would rather be alone than be with the wrong person.
Right.
Yep.
It's got to be the right person. And I wasn't attracted to anybody. There were opportunities, but I wasn't attracted.
But you also had to respect, like, and love you.
Yeah, that's true.
Which probably definitely during your marriage with Carol the first time, and then a couple others along the way. So you've had, you seem to have fond feelings for your ex-wives, for the most part.
She has passed away.
But you didn't leave with, yeah. There's three wives? 4 marriages?
11 years ago, she passed away.
Right.
Yes.
You do not. Your other 2 ex-husbands,
the second ex-husband has also passed away. Ironically, both number 2 for both of us passed away in the same week. Ironically, I was okay being single the last time.
I have to make...
She put her picture on her profile.
No, I never did that. I thought, oh, kill me now if I have to do that. But I was appreciating being single and being by myself. And it was funny you should kind of say that, because when I was by myself after the last one, I realized, Carol, you've never lived by yourself, ever. I mean, I went, I was in my parents' home, I married him, and then I had always had kids then, So even though the presence of a 3-month-old is not going to say, I'm going to save you, Mom, but just having that live presence of another human was enough for me, I guess. And so, I did was alone for a while, and I've told him this after we started talking. I said, I could envision Dean sitting over there on the couch. I think that'd be kind of cool. So, because we were liking each other, we did become friends again, if you will, before we went down that road again.
Go ahead, Dean.
I have to make one comment about the man that she was married to, that they ended their marriage in 2015. I came to know that guy over
20 years.
Those 15. How long were you married?
22 years.
20. Okay, wow. Over those 22 years, and he was a good dad to our son.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was.
And he's a good man, and we still see him once in a while. Okay, and it's not awkward. So I don't want to give the impression that this guy is not a good guy, because he is a good guy. You know what? Sometimes things just don't
I agree
work.
with that. But I want to get back to the positives of this, because I think this is it's hopeful, inspiring. We're selling hope here. On the Great Love Debate.
That's good.
Yeah.
So normally at the end of these podcasts, I ask people to tell us about their worst date or their best first date. I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna say, Carol, give me the best thing about Dean right now, today, as we record this.
Best thing about you.
Not the thing about the paper towels.
That drives me nuts.
I didn't even ask you for the worst thing, even though that's probably more interesting. Give me the very best thing about him as a man, as a husband right now.
He's very supportive. I know he's very much a homebody, and I like to go out and do things, and I'll say, hey, I'm going to go over in my sister's house. Have fun. I know you can do that. So I never feel he's going to get mad if I ask to be gone 2 nights in a row.
Go, please go. Just kidding.
But he's very sensitive, and he likes doing floors, and I love that.
That is plenty. There are women out there right now. It's like, that is more than enough.
And he loves to cook. And, I'm a good cook. He loves to do it, though. And I'm like, okay, you can have that. And I always feel guilty. Is there anything I can do to help? No, honey. And I'm like, yes. But yes, his sensitivity, and he really helps around the house.
Let him do that.
And then from a spiritual standpoint, he's grown so much, and that turns me on.
That you're right. If you find a guy who's willing to change or grow over the age of 40,
that's a miracle right there.
It is. Yeah. I know. Same question, Dean. You about Carol?
You want to know the best thing about me?
Yeah.
Well, you said the same question.
No, I know the answer to that. It's her.
Thank you very much.
The best thing about Carol, there are many things. The best thing is her ability to communicate. She just tells me things, and she can tell me anything, and I can tell her anything. And we're always in the no judgment zone. And I trust her completely. And I had a big problem with trust, throwing my trust to someone, because when you do that, you're vulnerable,
Yeah.
And I'm not real comfortable being vulnerable, but I never felt vulnerable.
Right.
And I just...
that's
I trust her completely. She's trustworthy, and she is very thoughtful and considerate to me. She lets me know that this is a secure relationship and that she loves me.
There you go. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Final question or thought?
I was just wanting to write a song about you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carol and Dean, the American dream.
I love that.
All right. You guys were great. I love this. I'm going to have you back because I have a lot more questions. Dean, however, you're doing a lot of good in the world. You have started a new podcast yourself.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about it.
The name of the podcast is called A Little Help. Remember, you might have said that when you were a kid, your ball goes astray. Little help. And hopefully someone would walk by and throw it back to you. Well, those kids grow up to be adults, and they have problems, and sometimes when we're adults, we need a little help. And that's what it's about. We're trying to help people who would otherwise fall through the cracks, people who are invisible, We're in the grocery store buying our Odie Fluffies and granola crinkles for our kids, and somebody walks behind us, an elderly gentleman who needs dentures, or a single mother with a couple kids who needs groceries. We don't know who they are. How could we know?
Yeah.
We've got a job with pressure. We've got our own kids. We've got our life. The dog is up for his shots. There's too much going on. So how do we do that? How do we help people? Well, we have a little small band of what I call seekers. We go out and we find them.
Is that great?
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right.
Inspiring.
You guys were awesome. You were. That's a really good word to end on. You were inspiring. Yeah. Where can we hear your music?
On Spotify. Yael Lanciano.
Lanciano.
it.
She will sing a song, "The Ballad of Carolyn Dean," coming soon to Spotify.
As long as we don't die at the end.
This is fantastic. I really appreciate you doing this. I really appreciate you sharing your story. The first time I heard a little fraction of it, I'm like, will you guys come on my podcast? And here we are.
Thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
As far as us, shoot us an email, greatlovedebate@gmail.com. If you got questions, thoughts, comments, if you've gotten back together with an ex-husband or wife, or you've got something you want to pass along to Carol or Dean, or you want to hear the Paper Towel podcast coming soon, go to greatlovedebate.com. There are live shows coming up. Every time I say I'm not doing anymore, either somebody talks me into it or somebody offers me a big pile of money. And I'm like, okay, sure. I'll do a show in New York. greatlovedebate.com for tickets and information. Like, share, follow, and please review this podcast. I hear music. Wow. Is that Titanic? I like that. It was music on it. Like, share, follow. Please review this podcast. After 10 years of doing this, your reviews still mean a lot in the podcasting ecosystem because, as always, at the Great Love Debate, we never stop making love. See you next time.